Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rourke with Brad Kooima Kooima Varilek, and we're seeing mostly higher prices except for the hog market this morning. And Brad, let's talk about the cattle. We've got green in both live and feeder cattle futures this morning, but I got to say I've been kind of disappointed in the performance of the board considering the sharply higher cash trade on Friday as well. Choice boxes have been moving higher.
Yeah, no, you won't get an argument from me there, Michelle. Thanks for having me on, of course, but it's amazing how good the news has to be to try to recruit a buyer or two here in the cattle, and particularly in the front end of the cattle, as the way the spreads are tilted here. Now, December has done a tremendous job of gaining against everything else here the last while, especially the February. We went from a 1.5 under the Feb to $1 over, which I think is a great sign. But I'm with you. You look at cash markets at 192 everywhere, even a few cattle traded as high as 194 in Western Nebraska late Friday. And here we sit with Feb cattle at 187. No weather premium built into it at all. The old days, of course, you'd have February premium the cash this time of year for sure, but those were the old days. Now it seems like since you've had, one black swan after another, the speculator seems to be afraid to step in front of it unless he's absolutely sure that the news is good. So it's a little frustrating. Futures market has changed their personality to a little bit to where they don't really anticipate quite as much as they used to, in my opinion. But we shall see. To me, the news. You mentioned the boxes; they're fine. You got a packer that's in a real catch-22 situation. He's got to have meat, and he's got meat sold, and he's making some money, and he's chasing just a tiny bit of a tighter inventory than he'd like, and it's a fine line. I've said it over and over. It's a fine line between too many and not enough. And with the way the action was on the cash last Friday, I am pretty excited. I mean, you got majors in here swinging on cattle and making new highs here in this area, and then hauling the cattle across the country to get them dead and picking them up Mondays after cattle that are sold Friday. Some of the majors willing to stick their neck out a month from now on basically steady prices. So as far as the guts of the market that I care about, the cash, it feels like the cash is in fine shape to me.
So this week, steady or better on cash again?
I don't think it's any worse. The only thing that might hold us back from being higher, and I'm not sure that this is going to happen, but the one thing that might is that we did trade a lot of cash cattle last week. And so maybe they won't be quite as hungry this week as they were last, but I sure don't know. I sure don't see why we'd be any lower. In fact, in my belly tells me it should be a little bit higher again. Maybe we'll try to approach that 194, a little more widespread here across the north, at least. Packers still chasing grade too. Look at that choice select spread. So if you've got some high grading cattle like we do in the north, we'll probably see that same migration or exporting of cattle from here, especially south, trying to chase some grade and some supply that they don't have down there.
And again, the market is still waiting and anticipating when the Mexican border is going to reopen. Any news on that this morning from you?
I'm sorry, I do not have anything new other than it's sooner rather than later. I think it's days, not weeks anymore. Maybe a week after next is some of the whispers. They've got protocol established. Treatment that's been successful everywhere else. I really think it's inevitable. To balance that out has been the ivermectin. Right? That's what they're going to use on it. What balances that out though a little bit, if you're the negativity potentially of that a little bit, is that the strength of the domestic feeder cattle market is just phenomenal. I mean, I've never seen feeder cattle quite this out there. I don't know how else to describe it. I know somebody that sells feeder cattle would be mad if we're really high on these feeder cattle relative to where the break evens are. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, how tight are the break evens, or are they negative in some cases here with where the board is at?
Closeouts that I got right now, cattle make a little bit of money. You pay these prices that especially at some of those sale barns last week, I would say you'd need conservatively a $4 rally. In some cases, you need as much as a $10 rally in futures if the basis is zero anyway. To get to break even levels in some of these cattle, unless these guys know how to feed them a lot cheaper than I do, Michelle. There seems to be this feeling that possession is just the key. I just got to possess some feeder cattle. I just have to have some. And that sometimes gets us doing some things that maybe are questionable strategy, I guess. The feeder cattle feel awful high to me, but good for the guys that are selling them. Tricky for the guys like us that have to buy them and figure out how to make them work.
Absolutely. Okay. Hogs breaking this morning, but it seems like every break gets bought here by the funds who are a record long. Do they just keep defending that position here despite what the fundamentals say?
Well, at some point, everybody has to get out, right? I used to have a saying taped to my when we used to have a regular phone like that, that said there's a paddle big enough to fit everybody's behind. And so you wonder, they're not just a little bit long. They are boots and shoes far beyond any other record level long that they've ever had before. Now, and they've got all the money. So, to say they're in some kind of like really worrisome position, they are not. And the only way they're going to get out is if the market starts to break enough to trigger some of these moving averages levels that say to them, hey, we better get out. So I do think, though, that there is, if you think about how a fund manager works, most of them are paid on an incentive based on the performance of their fund. So, that's why end of months are always interesting. That's why end of quarters are always interesting. Well, we're coming up on most of them for an end of the year deal. I cannot imagine that there wouldn't be some interest in having some long liquidation or taking some of that money home and counting it. You got a formation here where this is a potential top. You had a reversal down that follow through. We haven't taken out those old highs, but we haven't gone anywhere to the downside either. Your point is well taken. Every time the market feels like it's just hanging by a thread, they come back and support their position and put the market back together again. So my inclination is still to think that those highs we made a week and a half ago are going to be the highs for a while. And if I was a hedger, I would be very sensitive to taking a hard look at it.
Gotcha. Grains out of the plus side this morning. The corn market has gotten above some key moving averages here, and we know demand is good. Base is strong. Spreads are working, but how far can you push this market?
Corn's the princess of the deal here. That's the one that, I like the fact that the basis is strong. I like the fact that the spreads are strong. I think that one could make an argument that, based on the way the basis is, it was that corn crop quite as big as what some of the people are suggesting it was, maybe not. The trouble is where's it going to really go with wheat price the way they are, soybeans to a certain degree.
No doubt.
But I do like the way the corn acts. Beans today rallied right to first level of resistance. In my opinion, they got to the 40-day. And now we reeled it back. We'll see once. I'd love to see the beans break out for everybody's sake that's raising them. I just don't see the fundamentals here that support it. We need to put some risk into that South American crop. And at this point, Michelle, it looks like it's perfect. So that can change. The growing season isn't over, but the beans got some work to do to get through the supply worries that they've got.
Yeah, that the tariff fears and whatnot. But
Sure.
This morning, do you think some of this support is coming from outside markets? You've got crude oil higher, the dollar lower due to some geopolitical concerns with Syria, or is this report positioning or what?
I think escalating tensions here over the weekend are certainly part of it. Yeah, and it's all over the place, right? You mentioned the crude oil, and what's going on in Syria. You also have a little more tough talking out of the Ukraine-Russia situation. There and ongoing. There's enough uncertainty here without a doubt, and we're priced at a level that it's a lot easier to rally beans from down here than it is when they're at $14, of course. And the same thing could be said for the corn. We've heard a lot of this, though. We've heard a lot of this to the point where I think the traders like, whatever, let me know. Tell me when it really happens, and I'm going to react after that, perhaps. And I don't know that it's real wise to assume that just because it happened exactly this way in 2016, that's a guarantee that it's going to happen this way again this time around in 2024 in terms of the tariff stuff.
Yeah. And as far as tomorrow's report, we might see a few demand adjustments, but will they be enough to even move the needle?
Maybe it's just me, but this time looking at these numbers, I just don't see, we threw a little bit of a surprise at the market last time by lowering the yield on the bean thing. I don't look for something like that. And it didn't even do anything. The corn usage, I would think we're going to continue to see that improve, but I just don't know if that's enough to change any of the dynamics of the overall market. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's something super bullish, surprising in there. I do not look for it.
Okay, thanks so much. Brad Kooima with Kooima Kooima Varilek. That is Markets Now.